Experience the ultimate thrill, Porsche GT Track Day, where passion meets performance on some of North America's most legendary racetracks. Designed exclusively for Porsche owners, this is your chance to unleash the full potential of your vehicle in a motorsport environment. Drive the same circuits as professional racers, on the same weekend as Porsche Sprint Challenge events. Where will your Porsche take you? With limited space, every Porsche GT Track Day ensures a premium, exclusive experience. You'll get nearly 3 hours of track time, starting with reconnaissance laps, progressing through lead-follow sessions, and culminating in exhilarating open laps. Plus, strap in for heart-pounding hot laps with a professional race driver.
I thought I was fast. Didn't resemble anything that I've ever done.
Beyond the track, immerse yourself in VIP hospitality, premium viewing areas, and exclusive paddock access where you can witness Porsche Sprint Challenge teams in action. Spots are limited. Scan the QR code now to reserve your place at Porsche GT Track Day.
With a shared weekend with the North American Series, our drivers find some new competition moonlighting amongst them. Will it upset the proverbial apple cart? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch round 3 in the Porsche Sprint Challenge USA West Series. I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Roush Racing driver Joey Atterbury, and we're joined by special guest Riley Dickinson. Joey, this is a fantastic track, and as we've said earlier this weekend, a little bit more home turf for the West drivers.
Yeah, definitely. They just came off their last race out there just outside of Las Vegas at Spring Mountain Raceway, but this is another West Coast event out here at Sonoma, and we'll get that track map up for you here in just a moment. Located right in the heart of wine country, Sonoma, California. Out here, and it is a beautiful day, about 70 degrees out here, and we're here in the spring, so it's nice and green. Don't have all of the grass turned color yet, but tons of elevation on this circuit. Couple of areas to look out for. Definitely turn number 2 at the top of the hill. Seen a lot of cars kind of get loose and out of shape down there, and then also down at the end of the back straightaway off of that drag strip, turn number 7, probably the best passing opportunity on the racetrack, but also watch out for turn number 9A. That seems to be the biggest uh-oh area today.
It really does. We've seen a number of problems out there, some bigger than others, but let's go through the grid since we're almost through our first pace lap out of the 2 and bring you a picture of what it looks like today as Luke French will start on the pole next to Alan Metney, who has just gotten out of the car for the North America Series, so he's going to be tired. Then we get to row 2 where Jim Walsh is on the pole for our Masters category. Scott Blend will start next to him, another driver that's coming over and doing both series this weekend. Then it's Brandon Hakens, who is going to be starting in 5th overall with Kyle Washington next to him in the 6th spot. Daniel Hanley then starts the next row in 7th position, as Mark Krigler will be in P8. Londo then follows them up in the Masters class. They're 9th overall. Larkins after that in the 10th position. And then the last 2 of our GT3 Cup cars, Joey, is Doug Brandt, who unfortunately won't be able to partake in this race, and Wilgus, who starts from 12th.
And then, of course, since it is the West Series, it is a multi-class event, so we have the Caymans out here as well. Tom Rogers is going to be your pole sitter there in that class, starting what is essentially 13th overall. Tim Smith is going to be next to him there in 14th overall, but 2nd in that Caymans class. And then Jack Perriott is going to be starting off in the 3rd place position, but is your pole sitter in the Pro-Am class. Next to him is going to be Greg Herback starting there in the number 49 car. Then we've got a few more cars. Henry Marshall is going to be starting what is 17th overall, next to Manny Tartaglione. He's going to be starting 18th overall, and then the final of the Caymans is going to be David Bradshaw.
All right, so already down and through the carousel on what should be the last of the warm-up laps. Riley, in the previous 2 races, we had split the Caymans and the GT3 Cup cars. How does that change the dynamic here with the West Series having both on track at the same time?
Well, I mean, I think it makes for some interesting racing, of course. You have, of course, just because the car is different, a little bit slower class in the Caymans and, of course, the faster 992 Cups. And ultimately, throughout the race, once the 992s start to come around the track and maybe get into some lap traffic with the Caymans, if it goes green, of course, all the way through, it definitely can create some excitement for the drivers and also for us watching back at home.
Watching from the pace car right now, looking back on the field, eager and ready to go. A little bit less tire warming to do. Joey, you were kind of touching on before we came live that it's heated up today.
Yeah, earlier in the morning here in Northern California, it can definitely have those chilly ambient air temperatures, and then once the sun really starts to beat down on this track surface, it really raises everything up. So this morning you kind of had to be a little bit more worried about that tire warm-up phase, but now plenty of ambient temperature, plenty of track temperature. Actually, that track temp approaching 100 degrees already.
You look at those beautiful cars lined up 2 by 2, and the last of the field now kind of grouping up behind them. Metney, can he go back-to-back on wins here? Just comes off a victory in the GT3 Cup cars for North America, and he's going to have to battle with Luke French, who has been extremely fast over in the West Series. So it's 2 Titans that are going to be up against one another as we watch them come out of the final turn, looking for the call from the flag stand. It's nice and orderly here, just slightly split start between the pair of them. They're holding him a long time, but now we've got it. Green flag is out, coming down to the first corner. Good start from French. He is going to keep Metney from being able to overtake him up into turn 1, as now the Caymans also file in behind them and they hit turn 2.
Crucially, Luke French was able to get that hole shot and get out front, and then same thing in that Cayman class. Tom Rogers still maintains the lead from that pole position. Now we got a car spun around in turn 3 right here. Hold the brakes. Don't go back onto the racing line.
Oh, thankfully, it looks like everybody's heads up, so they're able to get by the stalled car. Should be able to get that going once again. Didn't hit anything, just lost a lot of track position here at the start of this race. Meanwhile, Rogers continuing to lead ahead of Smith, as it looks like that was Wilgus, I think you had that issue.
I think it might have been Kyle Washington in the 232 car, and remember, he had just performed it in a race prior to this as well, so evidently lap 1 troubles.
Yeah, in both races, unfortunately, for him, so it's been a bit of a miserable start for him. He's still got plenty of chance to try and recover as our leaders now weave through the S's. It'll straighten out in this version and come down to the chicane. This is that danger spot we were talking about, Riley.
It absolutely is. I mean, the hard braking zones here on this track, that's, there's really only a couple of them. You have the entry to turn 9, entry to turn 7, hard braking zone. Of course, you have a little bit of a hard braking zone into 11 as well, but this track, it's all about the rhythm. It's fast, it's flowing, there's lots of elevation to it, and quite frankly, once cars get spread out like this, it does create a bit of a challenge to have this overtaking happen, but ultimately, this is a great track to race on. It's one of my favorites in the country, and always, whenever I'm able to come out here and drive a bit, it's always a bit of a treat for sure, but yeah, it's definitely a tricky one to say the least.
Can confirm, good catch, Joey, that was Washington that went past us, who had spun around there at the start. As French leads the way over Metney, about a second between them as they cross the start-finish line. Blend is now ahead of Walsh. I think he managed to make that pass coming through 3 and 3A last time.
I believe, yeah, that was early on in that opening lap, but I think the biggest difference for this West race compared to what we saw at Spring Mountain a couple weeks ago, Luke French ran away with it. He didn't have a huge amount of competition, and right now Metney, coming off of that win just, call it, an hour ago, he's going to be putting the pressure on.
Yeah, I mean, Alan Metney and Scott Blend right now, they are the two, I would say, the top 2 Pro-Ams and AMs here in North America. So to have them on the heels of Luke French definitely gives him something to compare himself to, of course. And ultimately, we know Alan Metney, he's very much at the top of his game in Porsche Carrera Cup North America. Same thing with Scott Blend as well. And, it's actually a pretty good indicator for Luke French just to kind of gauge himself where he is with the competition and ultimately, be able to kind of defend his home turf over here on the West Coast.
Tom Rogers, in the meantime, has the upper hand over Tim Smith for the time being as we watch the leaders in the Caymans come down through the S's as well. In fact, Smith is under threat with Jack Perriott who has found quite a bit of speed compared to Spring Mountain, is flying much higher than we saw him before. Although we have to remember, Perriott is racing in the Pro-Am, Smith is racing in the Masters.
And a little bit wide there from that kind of third car in line. I believe that was Herback chasing Perriott down there. So you're just standing on the gas, maybe lifted the nose up a little bit earlier than what he was kind of expecting, and just kind of the car went out to the outside of the racetrack there. But thankfully was able to kind of reel it back in as these three call it a car length apiece between each other.
Smith is not going to want to settle for this second place. He had a P2 and a P3 with the potential for a win in both races back at Spring Mountain. So I don't think he wants to waste opportunities. If he can keep hold with Rogers, no doubt he will try to put on a challenge. And continuing to follow Herback, chasing the pair of them, though, up and over the crest of 3A and back down into 4. Of course, if they do get caught up by those 992 cars, that's going to change that dynamic very quickly.
And, you know, something that needs to be said about Herback as well. He had a little bit of an incident yesterday in practice, and so the team did an excellent job to make sure that car is race ready for today. And Perriott very, very wide through the carousel. Herback, you see, close in just that little bit. You always kind of, I wouldn't say take the shortest distance around through the carousel. You just want to make sure that you can get on the gas as soon as possible.
Exactly. I mean, it's all about the exit off the carousel from 6, which is the carousel, into turn 7. And, you know, depending upon the car, sometimes you'll want to do that tight line all the way through the carousel. Sometimes you want to do what I like to call a bit of a diamond line. So you go in tight on the entry, let the car kind of float out to the midpoint of the corner, and then be able to have the rotation to come down the hill and focus on your really good exit there. On the exit of 6, it just kind of depends on how your car's feeling. And ultimately for Jack, I think he just got a little bit of an oversteer moment there, coming up over the crest into the mid part of the corner, and just had to collect the car, and obviously had a little bit worse of an exit.
Well, and to kind of talk about that point in the racetrack, I think people overlook how fast it is coming up over the crest into turn number 6, especially in these GT3 Cup cars and even those GT4 Caymans. You are hauling.
You are. I mean, it's you have turn 5, which is obviously a bit of a slight bend to the right before that, after turn 4, which is what we're seeing here. So as you're coming out of the exit of 4, you have the slight bend to the right, which is turn 5 right there, and you are absolutely moving. It's every bit of 4th gear up and over the crest, downshift into 3rd gear in the Cup car and also in the Cayman. And you just have to be really patient before you get on throttle, before you come down the hill, and make sure you get the best exit that you can. But it's, like I said before, it's a great track. The rhythm of this place is so incredibly critical to be able to find and get the lap time out of it. It's definitely a pleasure to drive, for sure.
Jim Walshu is going to be joining for a partial season, trying to chase down Scott Glenn, but just about 2 seconds off, it looks like, the lead in the Masters right now. He had a bit of a mixed bag last season, but he's just jumping in for a race or two here in the West Series to try and see if he can get a few better results. So far, so good on this one. It's looking like a potential podium, as Londo, the next one back in the Masters there in the 992s, is separated by at least 3 of the Pro-Am drivers. Now we ride on board with our leader, Luke French. The gap now up to 2 seconds over Alan Metney. They'll cross the line once again, make that 2.3 seconds now. He's continuing to pull away.
Yeah, I saw Metney go through the turn 9A chicane, and he was climbing all up on that second apex curve, trying to chase down Luke French. And I think that's just a sign of how much pace this 215 really has in it. He put it on display a couple weeks ago, like I had mentioned, at Spring Mountain, but this is kind of the first true real big entry field that he's kind of faced. And Riley, like you were saying, it's almost like a data point to see where he stacks up.
It is. I mean, he's passing the test, so to speak. I mean, he just went purple on the last lap for the race, and he just went purple in Sector 1, which means he's improving continuously throughout this race. The Yokohama tires are starting to switch on, if you will, and he's starting to kind of get into his own here on the track.
We have a developing story that the 44 has been given a 10-second post-race time penalty for a start violation. This is starting to feel like history repeating itself all over again, as we had a similar problem down in the GT3 Cups for North America. So Rogers, unless he pulls a major gap, might lose this one to Tim Smith.
And that's frustrating, right? That's going to be a learning moment. And with the multi-class, they do kind of separate the starts a little bit. So I wonder if there just wasn't quite enough gap between the two. Obviously, I'm not in touch with race control up here in the broadcast tower, but that's probably what I would guess kind of happened to our pole sitter there in that Cayman Masterclass.
Yeah, I mean, it could have also been a change of column before the start-finish line as well, and I didn't keep an eye on the start itself, but for the North America race one that just concluded with the 2:11 at the initial start, it was a change of lane. That's what ended up giving him the 10-second post-race penalty. So, I would not be surprised if that was also what happened here with the 44. It could have been that he was too close to the cups, but ultimately maybe we can fall on that a little bit later. But yeah, definitely a frustrating one for sure, and that's going to be a tough learning moment for him. And ultimately, with USAC and with IMSA, this is the way that they do the starts, and it is frustrating because you do have to stay in your column until the start-finish line, but it's the way that it is for everybody, and ultimately, yeah, that is a bit of a tough learning moment for him, unfortunately.
Right now, he's doing what he can because he set the fastest lap of any of the Caymans on his previous time around. And in fact, I think he repeated that feat with another purple lap that was the best lap that I'm looking at right there. So still, he is going at a decent clip. Smith cut in on it by about 4/10 actually, I'm seeing now. So Smith picks up the pace in comparison.
As we jump up to what is this GT3 Cup category, watching Scott Blend go around the racetrack. This is our Masters class leader, and he's actually sitting third overall right now. Got a nice little piece of racetrack, right? He's got no aero wash directly in front of him. It's about 1.5 seconds, maybe 2 seconds up the road to that next car, so he doesn't really have to play with any dirty air right here. And at Sonoma, I don't think that's a big real talking point with these cars. However, the closer you do get, the more it can affect the car.
And I do think, Riley, that this is an interesting one, and I'm sure that Scott's glad that he's got some distance now. When I saw him battling there with Jim at the start, I couldn't help but think he's got to make this car last all weekend. He's entering it in multiple races.
I think we call him Iron Man by now, right? I mean, he's doing everything. It seems like any Porsche-related championship that you can enter a car into, he's doing it. But obviously, more power to him. He's getting the seat time. He's doing a great job, and ultimately, for him to be able to hang with Metney here in this race, and he was able to do the same in the last race as well for North America. Definitely just shows testament to the job that he's doing and also the team that he has behind him. Of course, I know he has Andrew Davis as well helping him out on the coaching side. He definitely has a good support system around him as we see a drive-through being served by the 295 down below us. We think that was possibly for instant responsibility with the 232 at the start of the race whenever Washington was spun around over between turn 3 and 3A. But back to Scott Blend, he's doing a great job. I mean, it's definitely cool to see him up there fighting for podiums and fighting for race wins, of course, on the Carrera Cup side, but can't say enough about the job that he's doing.
Yeah, that's a small bit of comfort for Washington, at least, as he unfortunately got a penalty for the previous race, but this one he was on the receiving end, but unfortunately it still puts him on the back foot, back in 8th out of all the 992s. This is second place in those 992 Masters right now. Walsh actually, I think, keeping Blend a little bit honest here. The gap between them still at roughly 2 seconds. So yes, Scott has separated himself, but Jim's making sure that he's not making this a rout.
And just remember, Jim Walsh lost that position on the opening lap out there. So in terms of a driver's perspective, he knows that, okay, I'm better, I'm faster in qualifying. I know I can go up there and make up that time, and I think that's why we see him still sitting on the back of Scott Blend out there, almost identical in pace.
I agree. And if I was in Jim Walsh's shoes right now, I would just kind of sit tight for the moment, right? We still have 23 minutes to go plus a lap. We're not even halfway through this race yet. And, tire wear, it might potentially become a thing here towards the end of this race. Obviously the Yokohama tire does a great job, but as the temperature rises, like we touched on earlier in the broadcast, it can create a bit of a tire strategy game towards the end of this race. So for Jim, I think let's just sit tight. Let's kind of keep our distance to Scott, just keep within touching distance of him, and then look to see for about maybe 10 to 15 minutes to go in this race. We'll start to kind of keep on pushing, and as we mentioned that, of course, though, Scott Blend just did a purple sector 1 and gained about half a second.
So are you saying that you need to tell a racing driver to slow down? How well does that work?
Depends on who you're talking to. It depends on who you're talking to. If it's an open-minded individual, it goes great. If it's like, no, I want to push, then it gets a little bit tricky, but it just depends on the individual. But, yeah, it's always a fun balance, right? And we say that tongue-in-cheek because I know from our side we always want to push as hard as we can whenever we're behind the wheel of the car, but it's definitely very much a mental game in the sport.
This is Manny Tartaglione, who we're watching, who's, I believe, going to be sharing the car with his dad when they get to the Endurance Challenge a little bit later. So So Manny getting some time out on the circuit here in the West Series. Actually in the Pro-Ams. And before it was just Jack Parrott who was racing in those Pro-Ams back in Spring Mountain. So he's bringing some competition to Jack and making sure that he has to work for that win this weekend. Though granted, right now they are split by about 2 cars between them on track, although one of them is Larkins in the 210.992. So as we hop on board now with Jack Parrott, showing him just exactly how close he is following on Tim Smith. So this could be for an overall win because Rogers still hasn't. Oh, wait, he's still got his 10-second penalty, yeah.
Of course, and he's going to be able to serve that. Well, he's going to have to serve that after the race, of course. But, for Tim Smith, he has caught up to the 44 of Rogers, and Jack is right along in pursuit on Tim Smith. So this is actually going to become a pretty good battle. You got the top 4 all under a blanket here within, what is this, a couple of seconds.
Well, and that's exactly what we saw back at Spring Mountain. This Cayman class, it doesn't matter if it's the Pro-Ams or the Masters driver, kind of throw those rankings out the window. The drivers all just want to be the fastest, right? So in terms of the order and points, it's important to remember the classes, but each one of these drivers, they want to be number 1.
Absolutely, and with that all being said, Greg Herbeck just put in the fastest lap of the race for the Cayman field at a 44.9, so that's actually a very good lap for him for this race.
Ooh.
Oh, big moment there.
Yeah, that was Rogers who was getting loose and did a miraculous save off of 3A. I don't know how Smith didn't get by, although he's sticking his nose in down into turn 5. He'll have to try again a little bit later. He saw an opportunity, but it flashed by just a little bit too quick. Still, this is the worst possible scenario if you're Rogers. He needs distance between himself and his rivals. With so many close behind, he'll essentially be falling to 4th in all of the Caymans.
And it's an interesting dynamic for everybody behind. Tim Smith as well as Parrott and Herbeck. If you're Tim Smith, you obviously want to go get by Tom Rogers, but at the same time, your team is telling you, hey, he's got a 10-second penalty. You don't have to worry about him. But then Tim looks in his mirror and is like, hey, I got a car right on my butt out here. I got to get moving. What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm Tim Smith right now, my best defense, if you will, is offense, right? We want to get by Tom to be able to put ourselves in the best possible position right now. I know we're going to have, with Tim Smith, Robert Todd, the team owner, he's probably on the radio right now telling Tim that exact thing. I was able to be fortunate enough to coach with BR Racing all year last year, which is who Tim Smith drives for this year. And no, it's definitely a good group of guys over there. They do a great job. It's a very family-oriented team and program over there. Definitely love them, and they've become a bit of a staple here on the West Coast. We did a great job with Blake McDonald last year, and of course this year now with Tim Smith, they're doing a fantastic job. So going to be interesting to see how this one plays out.
Well, Tim was experiencing quite a bit of pressure from Jack as Parrott was getting right to the bumper coming down through the hairpin, although he's fallen off now. So clearly that a bit of a stronger space for Jack coming through that last little hairpin. Can he capitalize on that? Remember, no points given to him extra if he goes by Smith or Rogers, but to be able to build that confidence is going to be so crucial for a young driver like him coming up in this Cayman series.
And it's all just about grabbing that lead away from Tom Rogers right now. Does a nice job, kind of does that diamond line, Riley, that you were talking about, where it just kind of let the car do its thing in the middle of the corner, and then once the front end finally grips up, you should have the confidence. Oh, huge wreck off of the end of the back straightaway there. I think that was the 3rd and 4th place Cayman cars, and that is a huge incident.
Oh, goodness. He's off the racing line, thankfully. There's a lot of fluid, though, and it was a pretty massive hit, so we're crossing fingers that everything is okay with the driver at this stage. And immediately, as we'd expect, a full course yellow comes out to try and take care of that. 17 minutes plus a lap left to go. So hopefully there's enough time to get the race restarted. But more than that, our thoughts are with the driver down there.
Yeah, I think I see he's already got the driver door open, but the GT3 Cup field going very slow because there's a large debris field on the racing surface out there. So they want to make sure that they keep their car in a nice, clean situation down there. And like you said, all thoughts go to the driver right now. Porsche builds incredibly safe race cars, so I'm sure that he should be okay.
Yeah, we had some serious accidents last year that really showed the strength of these vehicles, and thankfully have had a good track record up to now. Looked like he just got a little oversteer coming off that corner and hit that inside wall.
And yes and no. I'm not going to speculate because I didn't see it, but that is well past the exit of the carousel right there. And remember, those 4 cars were running nose to tail. I wonder if there was contact between that 3rd and 4th place car in the Cayman field. It's kind of what tells me, but I don't know. I did not see it, so I cannot confirm it.
Yeah, I mean, I, again, don't want to speculate unless we were able to get a replay or see some definitive proof. But, yeah, I'm willing to bet that was probably some contact there, unfortunately. That's just very unlike for a car to go off in the middle of the straightaway.
Well, and if you're that car trying to accelerate out of the carousel, and let's say if you do run out a little bit wide, if there's a car right on your tail, he's going to be looking driver's left. So might not even be aware of that car kind of creeping up on that left rear quarter panel, if that is what happened.
And at the time, it was Herback that was close to him. And I think it looks like Herback's able to carry on, so I think he was able to avoid getting caught up in it, at least, as our field now packs up behind the safety car. And French will continue to lead, but his gap over Metney has now been erased. Same thing for Blend over Walsh. We're going to take a quick break in the meantime while we get this cleaned up on the track and have a short commercial break. We'll be back with more racing soon.
Experience the ultimate thrill, Porsche GT Track Day, where passion meets performance on some of North America's most legendary racetracks. Designed exclusively for Porsche owners, this is your chance to unleash the full potential of your vehicle in a motorsport environment. Drive the same circuits as professional racers, on the same weekend as Porsche Sprint Challenge events. Where will your Porsche take you? With limited space, every Porsche GT Track Day ensures a premium, exclusive experience. You'll get nearly 3 hours of track time, starting with reconnaissance laps, progressing through lead-follow sessions, and culminating in exhilarating open laps. Plus, strap in for heart-pounding hot laps with a professional race driver.
I thought I was fast. Didn't resemble anything that I've ever done.
Beyond the track, immerse yourself in VIP hospitality, premium viewing areas, and exclusive paddock access where you can witness Porsche Sprint Challenge teams in action. Spots are limited. Scan the QR code now to reserve your place at Porsche GT Track Day.
The racing has slowed down as we've had a full course yellow here for the USA West Series in Sonoma for Porsche Sprint Challenge. Jack Perriott, who was honestly having a very good day, seeing a huge improvement in pace compared to his Spring Mountain run, come to an unfortunate end after he's had a massive wreck down on the drag strip out of 6 and before turn 7. Unfortunately, we can see a bit of movement in the wall that he ran into, so there may be some extensive repairs done to move that back into place. But I just feel, Joey, for Jack after he was really just seeing such an uptick.
Yeah, I want to echo what you said, is that our first race out there outside of Las Vegas at Spring Mountain, he was still kind of feeling everything out there. Relatively new circuit for him, but ever since he showed up here at Sonoma, he has been right on the times, right at the front of the field. So, I mean, there's always positives to take away from the weekend. You know, stuff happens on the racetrack, and you never want to see an accident like this, but you go back and you look at his performance in practice, you look at his performance in qualifying, and really through the first half of this race, he was fighting for the lead.
This has got to be a strange feeling inside the cockpit, Riley, that, I mean, you can see the aftermath, but you don't necessarily know what happened. And just kind of, I know how close you guys all are in the paddock, just hoping that they're okay, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a hard one. Of course, whenever you see one of your fellow competitors have a big incident like that, Jack and his dad, Todd, who, of course, drives for Kelly Moss, they're a great family. I can't say enough about Jack and Todd. This is my first weekend meeting Jack, and I've been working a little bit with Todd. Of course, he's been in the Kelly Moss tent for a while now, and they're just a great family. Definitely a great couple of guys, and just hoping all the best for Jack here.
Yeah, getting some good views here going through the scene on board with our pace car. And didn't see much of that debris that we had mentioned earlier, so it looks like they've already cleaned that up at the least, and there's definitely some oil dry being put down. And there is the remnants of Perriot's machine, unfortunately, with the 13 just about a write-off.
Very unfortunate to see. I think that if we go back racing, though, maybe the one positive to look at this is that the debris field or what was fluid on the racetrack is just barely on the racing line for a very short period of time in terms of distance down there. So racetrack should be A-okay as long as the safety features are all good. Remember, the track always wants to make sure it's safe out here, and that's exactly what they're doing right now.
And we're only 10 minutes plus a lap left to go, so yeah, there we can see some of that work being done to clean up the fluids. And like you said, it's well outside of the racing area, so that shouldn't affect things too greatly there. And no wonder with the force that car hit that wall that a few would escape. So we continue to wait for the cleanup, and the drivers watch that clock tick down. If you're Luke French, if you're Scott Blend, if you're Tim Smith, you're not too dissatisfied that it might end under caution, but for poor Tom Rogers, this is going to make it even worse.
Yeah, Tom was probably, besides, of course, Jack and his dad, Todd, he was probably third in line for not wanting to see that happen, of course. It definitely changes the scope of the race for him. He can go from potentially, fighting for maybe a podium if he was able to get far enough ahead of the 78 of Marshall. And now, of course, if this does end under another caution, he's ultimately going to be falling back into potentially a fourth position. But however, I will say, though, it looks like that the 78 of Marshall is actually a lap down. He's only completed 12 laps, so he might only fall down to the third position. So he might still get a podium out of this.
Interesting. Okay.
And yeah, I was trying to figure out what happened to Henry Marshall because, remember, he won both of the West rounds to open up the season here, but it was a little bit off pace to start this race. So evidently there was something that happened to that number 78 that at least I missed.
Yeah. We'll try and figure out what exactly was going on. I noticed that earlier as well, that I knew that he would have a slightly more difficult time because Spring Mountain was his home track. He had tons and tons of laps there, so that helped him out tremendously. So we expected to be a small change in the pecking order here, but Henry definitely seems to be struggling a bit here at Sonoma this weekend, although there could be some extenuating circumstances, it seems, with him already being a lap down. But Luke French definitely dealing with this with some brilliant aplomb as he's not only continued on to the lead, he's survived Alan Metney, keeping close to him when we did have green flag racing. And I think that's the big thing. You talked about it earlier, Riley, for Luke to show that, you know what, it's not just that I'm in the West Series. I'm fast no matter where you stick me.
Absolutely. I think it's also important for him on the confidence side of things as well. He has a few extra heavy hitters that came into the championship. He, I know, has a bit of confidence already himself, but it's always nice to go out and reprove yourself in the field and ultimately, being able to go up against guys like Alan Metney and Scott Blend and, consistently start to pull away and build a gap. It's going to be big for his confidence as opposed to just racing out there with not any competition, because obviously we do have a lot of great drivers here in the West Coast Series, but, just having the little bit stiffer competition, if you will.
Greg Herback as well, going to be looking at back-to-back podiums, 2 second places here if things end how we expect it to be. So Greg's still racking up some good finishes this season. And like you mentioned earlier, Joey, bouncing back after a significant incident earlier on.
Yeah, he did have that incident, call it yesterday in practice, right before qualifying. So her back, as well as that entire team over there, to be able to get that car ready for what is race number 1 here for the USA West Series. Great job by everybody involved to make sure that the driver gets back out there on the racetrack. And shout out to Matt Bell, too, one of my fellow competitors from way back in the Grand Am days. He's out there coaching Greg here this weekend.
Yeah, had a lot of great things to say about what Greg has been doing in the car this year. This is his second season of professional racing as Greg Herbacks, and he's been trying to make the most of it for sure. Meanwhile, also got to give a lot of credit to Tim Smith, who's looking potentially at his first victory of the season. He's been knocking on the door of it, and it's certainly been strange circumstances that he might take it today.
Well, not every race goes to plan, Joe. Sometimes you kind of got to call an audible or, be at the line of scrimmage, if you will, and be able to avoid what's in front of you. So racing, every single race is going to be different out there, and you just got to be able to adapt to everything and take advantage.
Are we going back racing? I don't see any safety cars out there, and I'm trying to see if I can spot the lights.
Now, we do have the safety car leading the field. We do not have any track cars, safety
emergency vehicles. Yes, sorry. Bad wording. Lights are off. I think we're going to get a bit of racing.
I think so, too.
Ooh. Well, this spices things up tremendously.
And so just to note before we do go back green here, so between Luke French and Alan Metney, we do have a lapped Cayman car, and that is the 59, I believe, and then a couple cars back, we also have the 78 Cayman. So let's look to see on the restart here. This is going to be a bit interesting. Luke should be letting the safety car go here.
I think that these restarts have always been a little bit of a point of emphasis this weekend, just with the learning opportunities. And like you said, Luke French already on the gas coming out of what is turn number 11, a great jump for himself.
Yeah, now what's going to be interesting here is our good friend John Maskey over in Race Control. That was a 10-second post-race penalty or it was actually a drive-through penalty in the previous race, which was the North America Championship for Cole Kleck in the 211. He waited too long and was too slow on the restart itself. So I'm curious to see what John's going to do here for Luke, because that was way early on the jump. He was pretty much on the gas coming out of turn 10 and pretty much accelerated with the safety car.
I think they just took those two lapped cars, Tartaglione and Marshall, down pit lane to get them out of the way, so they'll carry on back out onto the track. In the meantime, we watch our leaders with French ahead of Metney, Blend pulling away from Walsh, so not seeing battles at this stage for the lead, but of course that could change. He's got to keep it clean all the way to the finish, which is probably going to be another 4 laps.
And for Luke French right now, he's just got to focus forward. He knows that he's got a fast car. He knows he's got the performance within himself. And with only 3.5 minutes left, almost treat it like qualifying. You don't necessarily need to go out there in 11/10 and potentially make a mistake. But you want max performance to pull away from Metney. And once you've got that gap, which quite honestly in lap number 1 of this restart he's already got, then it's all management.
Oh, but look behind him. Things are getting interesting here for the lead in the Masters, because Blend has Metney in front of him. He's not going to want to sit around, because that could give Jim Walsh an opportunity. So if he gets a chance, I'm pretty sure he's going to be trying to challenge for that overall P2.
So remember whenever I said that Alan Metney and Scott Blend, they were the two top dogs for Pro-Am and Am right now in Carrera Cup? Well, they both know that for sure. They both know that. So this is going to be a fun little battle for them. Ultimately there's going to be some bragging rights here. Of course, they're in a different class here for this race, but there's definitely some bragging rights there involved.
And just watching Blend's car, in my opinion, maybe the shock settings are a little bit different compared to, I just love watching the attitude of it up and over turn number 2. It seems to be really hooked up in terms of the grip and standing on the gas. So that team doing a terrific job with that car.
Well, at the end of the lap, he was a lot closer to Metney, but Metney now runs away, and still Blend finds Walsh getting ever closer behind him, becoming a concern as he runs down the hill. And Blend not really competing in this championship per se. He is just here for the track time and, of course, above all, the win.
I think that's one of the cool parts about having all of the series here is that if you've got the race car here and you want to do the series, well, guess what? They're available for you. It doesn't matter if it's the North American Series, the Sprint Challenge, the Endurance Challenge that we're going to see often tomorrow. But if you got the track time and the ability, go get more practice.
And that's what he's kind of been doing this weekend, down to the chicane once again. Looks a little bit more clear this time. Same thing with Alan Metney. He's not as under threat as he was before, but he's also continuing to lose to Luke French, who is about 1.6 seconds up the road. I think it's going to be 2 laps to go this time by, and we should run out of the clock, getting the white flag the following time through.
Yeah, I mean, let's give out a little shout out here to Kyle Washington. Remember, he had that spin due to contact on the first lap, and now he's up in P5 overall, P3 in class, and potentially going after Jim Walsh for P2. So good for him. That's definitely a really, really good rebound there at an unfortunate circumstance there on the first lap. Obviously, the full course yellow helped. He was able to catch back up to the field, and he's made the most of it.
I think that's the big key right there. Made the most of when those chances come. You can see him in the background of some of the shots getting ever closer to Jim Walsh. So will Jim have to go from attack to defense here in these final laps of the race?
And just looking at Kyle's last lap time back there in that number 232 car, a 1:39.71. That is the fastest car on the racetrack outside of Luke French, who is about 6/1000ths of a second faster, so nearly identical. Keep an eye on Kyle Washington. He is going to be creeping up on the back of this battle before we know it.
I'm not sure how recent this is, but I'm showing that Daniel Hanley is off at turn 7 and has taken it behind the wall, so he's officially out of this race now. No idea what put him there, but it doesn't seem to have been anything that would cause a race stoppage. We're getting word that he pulled off on his own. So maybe he had an issue that we just simply aren't aware of at this stage. And look at how close it is between Walsh and Washington. We could have a battle to decide P2 soon.
Yeah, it looks like Blend is doing his best to try to attach himself to the back of Metney right now. Say, hey, let me get this fishing line on the back of that rear wing. Tow me along. Get me away from Kyle Washington and Jim Walsh.
Luke French, back-to-back wins at Spring Mountain to open things up. Round 2 here, race 1 of the weekend at Sonoma, and he's already in a great position, up to about 1.7 seconds, and less than a lap to go for him to claim a three-peat to start the season.
Now, let's also not forget here, coming to the white flag for the Cayman group here, we have Tim Smith and Greg Herback pretty much nose to tail. There's only a couple of car lengths between them for the de facto race win here. Obviously, as we know, Tom Rogers is going to get the 10-second post-race penalty. So Tim Smith and Greg Herback are going for the last lap shootout here.
Ooh, this is going to be fun to watch, no doubt. Herback would love his first win in the series, but so would Smith, both of them looking to try and finally break that duck. But Luke French has already achieved that. Now he's looking to try to continue to dominate. He told us early in the season already that he was thinking about wins, about poles, and of course ultimately hoping that can lead him to a championship, to make this a stepping stone for himself. He's doing all the right things so far, and it's just a few corners separating himself from his third win.
I loved talking to him at the opening rounds on the podium after he won those first 2 races, and he looked over at me. He was like, I could get used to this winning thing up here. I really like it, and seems to be performing once again.
It's just helped his confidence. He's been going from strength to strength as we watch him coming out of turn 11. It's going to be a win for Luke French here in race 1 at Sonoma for the USA West Series. Nicely done from Luke French. Scott Blend is going to be your 992 Masters class winner. And tell you what, the Cayman leaders are going through that 9A chicane right now. And it certainly seems like Tim Smith is still hanging on to what is second overall, but will be the class win after the penalty. I think Herback has passed him, isn't he?
No.
That's Tom Rogers.
I saw a Cup car spin off in turn 7. It was around the same area that they were in, so I thought it was potentially them. But, congratulations here to Tim Smith. He's going to come across the start-finish line to take his first ever victory here in the Porsche Sprint Challenge West. Congrats to him. That's pretty cool. Congrats.
Yeah, I knew that was going to catch me out at some point. Greg and Tom have such similar liveries, but fantastic there from Smith. And Rogers does wind up on the podium after that penalty comes across, as Marshall and Tartaglione will be a lap down to be our last two to complete this race. Well, it has been all kinds of stories in each and every series so far that we've had, and the USA West was not short of them as well. Let's hope that they wind up being good stories, as we've got our results, and Luke French is your winner. Alan Metney going to be coming home behind Luke French after he takes his third win of the series. Scott Blend, our winner in the Masters category, finishes third overall. Walsh with a valuable podium in one of the few races he's going to be showing up here this season, as Kyle Washington also on the podium in the Masters. And then Hankins, we didn't hardly talk about him. He is going to come home in third, but sixth overall for Pro-Am. So podium for Brandon. Londo will finish seventh. Larkins in P8. And then, of course, we get to the Caymans here, Joey.
Yeah, and because of that 10-second time penalty to Tom Rogers, it is going to be Tim Smith in that number 70 car taking that Cayman Masters victory. Greg Herback is going to be finishing in second in that class, with Tom Rogers slipping down to what is third place. Henry Marshall is going to come in fourth in that Cayman Masters class, with Manny Tartaglione is going to actually win the Pro-Am class, call it fifth overall in the Caymans. And then, unfortunately, the rest of those Cayman cars kind of had a little bit of trouble out there.
Yeah, a few DNFs today, but we're not done with our coverage. The podium ceremonies are going to be coming your way here at Sonoma Raceway, so don't go away.
It's hard to contain your excitement when you get something you've really wanted. Like the gold standard in automotive protection, WeatherTech floor liners. With deep sculpted channels and laser measured for total protection in the front, back, and even up the sides.
Dad, you're going viral.
What? WeatherTech me.
So don't be shy, enjoy. Order your premium American-made products at WeatherTech.com.
Experience the ultimate thrill, Porsche GT Track Day, where passion meets performance on some of North America's most legendary racetracks. Designed exclusively for Porsche owners, this is your chance to unleash the full potential of your vehicle in a motorsport environment. Drive the same circuits as professional racers, on the same weekend as Porsche Sprint Challenge events. Where will your Porsche take you? With limited space, every Porsche GT Track Day ensures a premium, exclusive experience. You'll get nearly 3 hours of track time, starting with reconnaissance laps, progressing through lead-follow sessions, and culminating in exhilarating open laps. Plus, strap in for heart-pounding hot laps with a professional race driver.
I thought I was fast. Didn't resemble anything that I've ever done.
Beyond the track, immerse yourself in VIP hospitality, premium viewing areas, and exclusive paddock access, where you can witness Porsche Sprint Challenge teams in action. Spots are limited. Scan the QR code now to reserve your place at Porsche GT Track Day.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for our podium ceremonies for Porsche Sprint Challenge USA West. We're going to kick things off with the Cayman Masters. We'll go to third place, driving the number 44. It's Tom Rogers. Coming home in second place, driving the 49, Craig Herback. And claiming his first win of the season in the number 70, Tim Smith.
Well, Tim, your first win here in the West Series, and I mean, coming off for a couple of second place a few weeks ago, this one's got to feel good.
This one feels great. First I want to say thanks to everybody for coming out and letting us enjoy this hobby. A bunch of amateurs, a bunch of old men, most of us. So thank you for coming out. Thanks for BR Racing for giving me the best car out there. You could certainly tell today. And thanks to my #1 sponsor, KG. Yeah, no, it felt good.
So I know that you kind of got gifted the lead because of a penalty from Tom Rogers out there. What's the goal for race number 2 now?
There are no asterisks in racing, first off, okay? I had Tom exactly where I wanted him. Tom knows it. I know it. Even his coach knows it. Now, we're just having super fun out there. Keep it clean. Don't hit anybody. Have a good time. It's a beautiful, sunny Saturday. It'll be a beautiful, sunny Sunday morning tomorrow. Done. We can go get brunch.
Congratulations on the win. Time to celebrate.
Let's hold our trophies up. We can wait 1 second. There we go. Now we can spray the champagne. Fantastic job for our Cayman Masters. Let's give it up one more time for them. That now takes us to our Apexon Award. This is for the hardest charger in the race. In the Caymans, it was the number 70 of Tim Smith. Congratulations to Tim. Now it is time for the 992 Masters. Finishing third today, charging back through the field, it's the number 232 of Kyle Washington. Finishing second today, driving the number 269 machine, Jim Walsh. Making a quick turnaround from the North America Series, our winner in the Masters is the 245 of Scott Bland.
Scott, I'll climb up to the right side of here of you.
Come on, don't get stuck.
Oh, yeah, it is a little sticky with all the champagne going on. Congratulations on the win.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was a great race, and yeah, thank you.
So what was it like? You were chasing down the leaders up front the entire time, but you also had a lot of pressure in that rearview mirror.
No question. Jim and I had a side-by-side start. We took it all the way through 3A, and it kind of sorted out there. But then I had Alan in front of me, which is always great to see that bumper, and you got that rabbit. But Jim, like you said, he was right back there. So there's no question Mike was on the radio. Second back. So I knew no time to give up, but it worked out.
Congrats, and we're looking forward to seeing you race the rest of the weekend.
All right, thank you.
Let's show off that hardware for the cameras. And now we get to celebrate with some champagne. Huge congrats to the 992 Masters. That takes us to the Good Boy Vodka Fastest Lap Award. Today, that goes to the driver of the 215, Luke French. Congratulations to Luke. That now takes us to the 992 Pro-Am podium. Starting with third place in the 295, Brandon Hankins. Another driver with a lot of action on track this weekend. Our second place goes to the 298 of Alan Metney. Making it a three-peat of wins at the start of the season. Our victor today is the 215 of Luke French.
Luke, I'll be right here to your right side. So, rewind a couple weeks ago, pole position, 2 wins. Now fast forward here, a pole position in the first win. Feels good, doesn't it?
It feels great. I just want to, thank my team, first of all. I want to thank Porsche Motorsports as well because they hosted a great event. And I also want to thank Yokohama Tire for giving me, providing me the grippiest tire out there.
Are we going to see a repeat performance here tomorrow in race number 2 for you?
I certainly am going to try. It was really hesitating coming off of that restart, but I think it was really fun, and I'm going to try to do it again tomorrow.
One heck of a performance. Time to celebrate, bud.
Now our USA West drivers get to celebrate with some champagne. That's our 992 Pro-Am podium here in the USA West Series. We'll be back with more racing coming up next. It's going to be the Caymans once again in the North America Series here shortly.